Radhas of our Divine Mother. Our Divine Mother says, where we confined inescapably within the four walls of our personal consciousness, that would indeed be sad and overwhelming. But the infinite is open to us. We have only to plunge into it. With love and blessings, says our Divine Mother. Sri Aurobindo's assurance. Our Lord Sri Aurobindo says, anything else one may doubt, but that he who desires only the divine shall reach the divine is a certitude, and more certain than two and two make four. That is the faith every sadhak must have at the bottom of his heart, supporting him through every stumble and blow and ordeal. With blessings, says our Lord Sri Aurobindo. Radha's Prayer, written by our Divine Mother. O thou whom at first sight I knew for the Lord of my being and my God, receive my offering. Thine are all my thoughts, all my emotions, all the sentiments of my heart, all my sensations, all the moments of my life, each cell of my body, each drop of my blood. I am absolutely and altogether thine, thine without reserve. What thou wilt of me, that I shall be, whether thou choosest for me life or death, happiness or sorrow, pleasure or suffering, all that comes to me from thee will be welcome. Each one of thy gifts will be always for me a gift divine, bringing with it the supreme felicity. Words of our Lord Sri Aurobindo from the All India Magazine of November 2009. Topic: do not divert yourself from the one thing needful. Our Lord Sri Aurobindo says, to find the divine is indeed the first reason for seeking the spiritual truth and the spiritual life. It is the one thing indispensable, and all the rest is nothing without it. The divine once found, to manifest him, that is, first of all, to transform one's own limited consciousness into the divine consciousness, to live in the infinite peace, light, love, strength, bliss, to become that in one's essential nature, and as a consequence, to be its vessel, channel, instrument in one's active nature. To bring into activity the principle of oneness on the material plane, or to work for humanity, is a mental mistranslation of the truth. These things cannot be the first object of spiritual seeking. We must find the self, the divine. Then only can we know what is the work the self or the divine demands from us. Until then, our life and action can only be a help or means towards finding the divine, and it ought not to have any other purpose. As we grow in the inner consciousness, or as the spiritual truth of the divine grows in us, our life and action must indeed more and more flow from that, be one with that. But to decide beforehand by our limited mental conceptions what they must be is to hamper the growth of the spiritual truth within. As that grows, we shall feel the divine light and truth, the divine power and force, the divine purity and peace working within us, dealing with our actions as well as our consciousness, making use of them to reshape us into the divine image, removing the dross, substituting the pure gold of the Spirit. Our Lord Sri Aurobindo says, only when the divine presence is there in us always and the consciousness transformed can we have the right to say that we are ready to manifest the divine on the material plane. To hold up a mental ideal or principle and impose that on the inner working brings the danger of limiting ourselves to a mental realization or of impeding or even falsifying by a halfway formation of the true growth into the full communion and union with the divine and the free and intimate outflowing of His will in our life. This is a mistake of orientation to which the mind of today is especially prone. It is far better to approach the divine for the peace of light or bliss that the realization of Him gives than to bring in these minor things which can divert us from the one thing needful. The divinization of the material life as well as the inner life is part of what we see as the divine plan, but it can only be fulfilled by an outflowing of the inner realization, something that grows from within outwards, not by the working out of a mental principle, says our Lord Sri Aurobindo. Our Divine Mother says, even a very deep pain can be swept away, simply a concentration like this. To place oneself in infinity and eternity, everything goes away, my child. One comes out of it cleansed. One can get rid of all attachments and even, I say, of the deepest sorrows of everything in this way. If one knows how to do it in the right way, it immediately takes you out of your little ego. When you feel that you are shut in a completely narrow and limited thought, will, consciousness, when you feel as though you were in a shell, then if you begin thinking about something very vast, as for example the immensity of the waters of an ocean, and if really you can think of this ocean and how it stretches out far, far, far and far in all directions like this, and our Divine Mother stretches out her arms, how compared with you it is so far that you cannot see the other shore, you cannot reach its end anywhere, neither behind nor in front, nor to the right or to the left. It is wide, 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 wide. You think of this and then you feel that you are floating on the sea like that, and there are no limits. This is very easy. Then you can widen your consciousness a little. From the Collective Works of Our Divine Mother, Volume 6, page 344. Our Lord Sri Aurobindo says, surrender means that to give up our little mind, its mental ideas and preferences into a divine light and a greater knowledge, our petty personal trouble, blind, stumbling will into a great, calm, tranquil, luminous will and force, our little restless, tormented feelings into a wide, intense, divine love and ananda, our small suffering personality into the one person of which it is an obscure outcome. If one insists on one's own ideas and reasonings, the greater light and knowledge cannot come, or else is marred and obstructed in the coming at every step by a lower interference. If one insists on one's desires and fancies, that great luminous will and force cannot act in its own true power for you to ask it to be the servant of your desires. If one refuses to give up one's petty ways of feeling eternal love and supreme Ananda cannot descend or are mixed and split from the effervescing crude emotional vessel. A Divine Mother says, absolute trust in the supreme wisdom of the Divine Grace. A Divine Mother says one must have a great purity and great intensity in one's self-giving, and that absolute trust in the supreme wisdom of the Divine Grace, that it knows better than we do what is good for us and all that. Then, if one offers one's aspiration to it, truly gives it with enough intensity, the results are marvelous. But one must know how to see them, for when things are realized, most people find it absolutely natural. They don't even see why and how it happened, and then they tell themselves, yes, naturally it had to be like that. So they lose the joy of gratitude, because in the last analysis, if one can be filled with gratitude and thanksgiving for the Divine Grace, it puts the finishing touch, and at each step one comes to see that things are exactly what they had to be and the best that could be. From Collective Works of Our Divine Mother, Volume 7, page 239. Our Divine Mother says the pure flame of gratefulness must always burn in our heart, warm, sweet, and bright, to dissolve all egoism and all obscurity. The flame of gratefulness for the Supreme Grace who leads the sadhak to his goal. And the more he is grateful, recognizes this action of the grace, and is thankful for it, is the shortest way, says our Divine Mother. Our Divine Mother says, a loving recognition of the grace received from the Divine, a humble recognition of all that the Divine has done and is doing for you, the spontaneous feeling of obligation to the Divine, which makes you do your best to become less unworthy of what the Divine is doing for you. These are the words of our Lord Sri Aurobindo and our Divine Mother. Wishes to all the children of the Divine Mother on the occasion of this Darshan Day, March 29.